Day from you here in the studios of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA, and precisely Weekend Deal. Now, last week a conversation, was commenced right here in the studio. I tried to listen to a whole lot of it, and it took my mind right back to when I was in school, and of course, even till now, we're all told the meaning, the definition of democracy. One thing stands out, different definitions, but one thing stands out, that it is a government, a system of government that is all-inclusive. That means you and I are participatory, full-time. But what happens when people, are not, we're at a turn back, especially at the very crucial selection period? That's I'm talking about voter apathy. This conversation started last week. Today, I'd like to know, maybe you can help me answer the question, where did it all start? What happens when the different democratic parties, different political parties decide to also have, let's put it that way, voter apathy within them and seemingly lack of democracy? I don't know. But I know this conversation last week was dealt with by Suleiman and Tete. I like to call it a Tete. So I'd like you to answer that question. But all the same, I know you have taken time to do things together for all of us to, go around Nigeria and find out what really is happening.
Exactly. We are taking off from where we left off last week, which is talking about voter apathy and the absence of internal party democracy. And basically, it was just about how we respond to that clarion call to stand and, be involved in picking and choosing our future leaders, and the fact that despite our population, of course, being in over 200 million, at the end of the day, when the votes are collated, we have probably 3 million or so people who registered, and even less that actually casted their vote, which is actually disappointing considering the fact that we have been in a democracy since 1999. You would expect,
people, and every day it seems as if it's going down.
Yes.
I was reading something from Premium Times March, sometime when the by-elections for the legislative was done in Abia State. I was told it was like just 3% of the people that voted. That's quite sad.
As we had started last week, of course, we mentioned that earlier, we were talking about voters' apathy and the absence of internal party democracy. And of course, basically, it's just talking about the low turnout of voters on the days of voting compared to the people who actually originally register to vote compared to the people who actually do vote, and then comparing that population with the entire population of the country, which honestly is
it's not impressive.
It's not impressive at all. Anyways, to further elucidate on the situation, Francis Obe put together this backgrounder to shed more light on this situation.
As the 2023 elections draw closer, the need for full participation by all and sundry cannot be overemphasized, as democracy has been adjudged the world's most accepted system of government. It is the majority that decides the outcome and thereby puts a stamp of legitimacy on the elected. But what happens when majority of the electorate are nowhere to be found on the day of election to cast their votes? What is responsible for voter apathy?
One, my vote doesn't make any difference. Two, it could be boring to some people. And then three is just poor awareness. People are not seeing the benefits as they should. When people can't understand how politics or voting relates to their everyday life.
Political parties play a significant role in the democratic process as they are considered the lubricants of democracy. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, structurally, political parties are weak, and this has always led to lack of internal cohesion. The lack of internal democracy in the political parties is therefore not only worrisome but has become highly problematic, with rising incidences of parallel congresses across the country just recently.
People feel they stand to lose out and there is no mechanism for redress. They tend to run something parallel. So they do it to show you that they are a force to reckon, so that they drag you to court, you go to court to resolve it, and when you go to court, with the kind of system we run, you are not sure where it will swing at the end of the day. So they put you in a very tight corner. So this thing still boils down to trust and the culture of impunity, because people who occupy position of leadership in these political parties feel like they are conquerors. They have conquered every other person. You must kowtow to their whims and caprices. And some people will resent it and they form parallel structures, do parallel things to show you that they also have force, so that a third party, which is the judiciary, will eventually come to intervene. And this thing is a reflection of the larger society. A party that cannot build trust among its members, a party that cannot build consensus, cohesion, acceptability, cannot be able to give good leadership. You can't give what you don't have. So that is the problem. So these are indicators of the ailings of the system. The system is sick.
The recent congresses conducted have only shown that the culture of inclusive democracy is still miles away from the nation's political space.
Internal democracy of a party is a major ingredient. If it's not there, a political party has no role to play in a democracy, because you have to show what in a miniature form in your small party, how you intend to do it if you win the power you are seeking. But when internal democracy is there, what is internal democracy? You have your rules, you follow your rules, you have your processes, procedures for doing things, even nomination of candidates. You build that culture of trust, culture of orderliness, not impunity. But when somebody sees himself, I'm the chairman of the party, I'm a conqueror, I've conquered everybody, what I do matters, what I decide matters. You now collect money from all sorts of people. You down to run to go by your rules becomes difficult because you have been compromised.
As Nigerian youth continue to agitate for the inclusion of young people in Nigerian politics, it is not enough to be social media warlords without belonging to a political party. The challenge is how to transform the vibrant online activism demonstrated during the NSAS protest into electoral politics and broader civic participation.
A political party on a political environment that is dominated by gerontocrats, very old people, who are over 60 years, they are making policy for who? For the future they will not be part of. Let the youth be involved in politics so they can be part of the design of that future that will benefit them. It is not enough to sign very young to run or whatever. You have to have a work plan. You have to structure it to give yourself targets. Over the next 5 years, look at the percentage of youth who want to be involved and look at the level we want them to be involved. The same thing applies to women.
Irrespective of the validity of the reasons for voter apathy, it is counterproductive for the people to shun polls in a democracy. It should be recalled that some people gave their lives for us to enjoy the democracy that we have today. It is therefore a great injustice to their memories if this culture of voter apathy continues.
Voter apathy can be addressed when you have more enlightenment, more education. We used to have Mansa, used to have Mansa and do those jobs those days. Talk to people in the villages, tell people why they must not collect money, they must not sell their votes. That education should continue.
Our focus on Weekend Deal today will be on addressing the challenges of voter apathy in Nigeria.
And I can assure you that by the end of today, we will make very great progress in addressing that issue. Most importantly, ensuring that the turnout improves. And don't ask me how we're going to do it. Just sit back and watch us do it. And of course, you will be participating greatly. Now, when we talk about voting, a lot of voting goes on in different, environments, from our homes, social media, entertainment stories, and a whole lot of it. And it is said that the youth remains the greatest population of most nations, including ours. Now, when it comes to social events, the numbers of voters are usually very high. And if you check, a lot of them are youths. One wonders again, why is it that when it comes to, the very important thing, which is electing our leaders, there is great apathy within them. Let's join NTA Bado, get to find out more on this story.
The success of any government depends largely on the participation of its citizenry in the democratization process. For a political system to be representative, all parts of the society must be involved. Globally, youth participation and representation in institutional political process and policy making is relatively low. People under the age of 35 years are rarely found in parliaments, public administration, and decision-making bodies, despite the fact that the approved voting age is 18 years. The political representation of young men and women remains limited. Although young people are involved in activism in the digital space, protesting, volunteering to improve their communities, innovation for social good, their participation in and influence on formal politics is limited. It has been observed that most Nigerian youths only show interest about politics on social media while shunning the need to get involved in partisan politics and taking up the challenge of seeking political office.
It's like concentrating political elites to the detriment of the younger generation who are supposed to be the future of the nation. So, as a result of that disconnection, the only common everyday relationship that a younger person is got in this generation, in this dispensation, is social media. That's where they live their lives, that's where they do their things.
This trend is fast becoming worrisome, and the problem is attributed to lack of trust on the part of the followers to the leaders. How then can the youth be convinced to get involved in seeking political office and the trend of voters' apathy among the youth be tackled?
The electoral process is so cumbersome. You go first, you do accreditation, you go first, you do this, they tell you, then there are thuggery here and there. No thugs attacks the youth for voting whom they want on a BB Nigeria show. And so we need to up our games as electoral umpire. That is the high net. They can employ other means as electronic voting. If there is a means for youth to vote electronically, I can assure you that 80% of Nigerian youth with access to just a mobile phone will participate in the electoral process.
If we are going to get it right in 2023, then this apathy must be taken care of, and it is proper education that every Nigerian that is enfranchised at age 18 can vote and be voted for. And you can seek a political office at different levels, even by level of education, school start level, NCE, graduate and stuff like that.
It is, however, suggested that for one to seek good governance and proper representative, it is imperative that all youth should get more involved in the democratization process by participating in elections actively and voting during elections, using their franchise to select right leaders in order to build a Nigeria of our dreams.
All right, it's still Weekend Deal, and picking up from what we saw from Ibadan as actually national representation, we have someone who will be speaking on that and even more seated right here with us in the studio. So you can always write in and ask your questions, as well as our own will be taken care of by him. I know he's able and capable. Join us as we welcome the National Chairman, the National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voters Education Committee, INEC, Festus Okoye. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, good morning.
All right. Now, let me even start from the very first, a pick up from what we saw in Ibadan. Young people usually do not turn out well when it comes to voting. We're supposed to come from 18, but if you go on the line, it's mostly people between 50 and above that we see. How do we make voting, election processes more appetizing for the young people?
Well, as an electoral management body, we have changed the trajectory of that. And one of the things we have done is to also flow in the direction the young people are proceeding to. And that was why during the commencement of the continuous voters registration exercise, the Independent National Electoral Commission decided to create an online portal through which young people, especially who are internet savvy, can commence their pre-registration. And if you check the number of registrants who patronized our online registration portal, you can see that young people between the ages of 18 and 34 form over 70% of those who have done their pre-registration. And even in terms of the completed registration, you can see that young people between 18 and 34 are still dominating. So what we have done is to increase the use of technology in the electoral process because young people definitely want us to go the technological direction, and that's exactly what we are doing. So we are hopeful and we are confident that with some of the measures we have put in place, that we are going to increase the participation of young people in the electoral process. Not only that, you will also realize that this commission increased the number of polling units in Nigeria from 119,984 to 176,996. This is to make sure that we take polling units closer to the people, so that on election day, you don't have to take a motorbike or walk 10, 20 kilometers to get to a polling unit. So we've taken the polling units closer to the people, closer to their homes, closer to their offices, and also making sure that persons with disability do not suffer any disadvantage when they want to go and vote. So we are putting in measures that will make it attractive for young people to exercise their democratic franchise.
Lovely. Now, you just mentioned about electoral process. You were going to ask something about...
Yes, I was going to. Sir, the thing is, most times when you ask the average youth, especially as regarding, why are you not, exercising your vote, there's always that apprehension, the polling units are not safe. There's always a crisis or another when, during the actual process. So what has been put in place to make sure that the average person feels safer, especially the youth? They feel safe and they feel that, okay, their votes will actually count. They will not be coerced in any way when they do go to cast their ballots.
I think that's a very legitimate concern, and it's a legitimate concern that goes across almost all age groups. Especially persons with disability, women, pregnant women, the elderly, and so on. Now, one of the things we do in our polling units is to create a separate queue in some places for women, and also create a separate queue for men.
Oh, really?
Now, we also advise our presiding officers to give priority to the elderly and persons with disability in terms of voting. Okay. But that does not obviate some of the challenges we have in terms of violence at the level of the polling units. And the moment people realize that they can go to the polling units and come back maimed, or that they can go to the polling units and something untoward will happen to them, they will definitely stay away. So one of the things we've been doing is to work very closely with the security agencies in terms of securing the electoral environment and making the electoral environment more civil. But you know, ordinarily, voting, an exercise of franchise, should be an ordinary civic responsibility without the involvement of the police, without the involvement of the soldiers, and so on and so forth. Sure. But our climb is slightly different because politics in our own climb has been taken to a different level. And sometimes when you look at the political parties and the politicians, you are wondering whether they are from a different planet. This is because as the commission is making preparations for good deployment, making preparations for good election, some people are also making preparations to steal the election itself and to survive the mandate of the people. They employ talks, drug some of the young people. They go to the polling units to go and carry ballot boxes, carry ballot carry ballot boxes, destroy ballot papers, chase away the voters, and they want to write their results. But one of the things we have done is that if this new electoral framework that is being put in place comes into fruition, there's a possibility that the commission will procure electronic voting machines. So we are going to have electronic balloting. And then when you also have an opportunity of transmitting election results from the polling units to the first level of collation, it will make it slightly difficult for people to corrupt the entire electoral process, especially at the polling unit level.
You know, from what you're saying, it makes me understand that you're obviously delighted with the National Assembly ascending to the clamor of electronic voting, which makes a lot of sense. I would like to know, I don't know, it may not be possible, but from my, layman's perspective, I would want to see a situation where the young people or anybody who wants can actually sit down in the comfort of your house and vote, because a lot of things are going on in the entertainment industry and otherwise, and people vote from their homes. Yes. And their votes count. Is that ever going to be possible?
Oh, definitely, it's going to be possible. But we are looking at incremental changes and also incremental gains and the incremental positive gains. Now, what we have done, learning from the period of the pandemic, you will realize that because people do not really give the Independent National Electoral Commission enough credit that they deserve. During the period of the pandemic, so many countries, advanced countries, either postponed or cancelled the elections. But we developed a policy of conducting the elections within the context of a pandemic. And that was what we used in conducting the Edo governorship election and the Ondo governorship election and some other by-elections. And so many West African countries, so many advanced countries borrowed our policy and used our policy in proceeding with the elections within these difficult circumstances that we have. Now, arising from this pandemic and also the lessons we learned from it, the Commission now developed what we call an online candidates nomination portal. So political parties no longer come to the commission with the list and personal particulars of their candidates when they finish their party primaries. They upload them online and then we publish the list. We have also gone a step further. For domestic observers, they also apply electronically, and the media also applies electronically for accreditation. And we accredit them electronically. So they don't come to the commission. For political party agents or polling agents, the political parties are now uploading the list of their polling agents or party agents electronically, and we accredit them electronically. And you can also see that we created an online portal for pre-registration. So we are moving towards deepening the use of technology in the electoral process.
How do we begin to, rid our political parties of this tiny crisis that often seem to, bedevil them?
Now, in the new electoral framework that the National Assembly is trying to harmonize, they retouched Section 31 of the Electoral Act. prior to this particular period, and based on the extant law, when a political party has concluded its party primaries, it forwards the list and personal particulars of the candidates to the Independent National Electoral Commission. And the law is that we cannot reject it for whatever reason. But now that particular thing has been removed in the new electoral framework that they're working on. And they said political parties must forward the name and personal particulars of candidates that emerge from valid party primaries. And by section 285 of the Constitution, the Independent National Electoral Commission has been given power to even disqualify candidates or refuse to accept the nomination of candidates that did not emerge from valid party primaries. So we believe that some of these measures that are being put in place will nudge the political parties towards doing the right thing. And in the new legal framework, they have also increased the penalty for submitting the name of a candidate that is not qualified to the Independent National Electoral Commission. So I think that a lot is being done, but more fundamentally, the political parties must play by the rules of the game. The political parties must learn how to be democratic, because if you are not democratic, there is no way you can act democratic. So they must imbibe the democratic spirit and work in conjunction with the Independent National Electoral Commission to clean up the electoral process so that validly nominated candidates will be the ones who will flag their who will be their flag bearers during election.
Okay, thank you. And well, in conclusion, since we're looking forward to the Anambra state elections coming up on November 6th.
Yes.
What are your comments, what are your expectations, and what are those pieces of advice you could give us regarding the entire process?
We've gone very, very far in terms of preparing for the Anambra governorship election.
Okay.
When we released our timetable and schedule of activities, we had 14 items on that timetable. We have implemented 12. The only thing that is remaining now is end of campaigns and elections. Not only that, we finished training our electoral officers, we finished training assistant electoral officers, we've finished training the supervisory presiding officers. Training for presiding officers is ongoing as at now. And we are also in touch with the security agencies towards making sure that everybody is secured. So we are hopeful that the people of Anambra will have the will and the courage to step out, exercise their democratic franchise, because that is the way to go. And we assure them that we are doing everything possible to make sure that whoever comes out to come and vote is protected and that they are going to vote in a very safe and secure environment.
We've been speaking with the National Commissioner, Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee, INEC. He's a barrister and he's called Festus Okoye. I always say the man does not need microphone to talk.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to Lagos.
Yes, okay. Lagos Network Center, and of course, in relation to what we had already started talking about, is we're talking about the update on the primaries and absence of internal party democracy. Over to you, Lagos.
The beauty of democracy anywhere in the world is when electoral process and the results are considered free, fair, and credible, whether at the party, state, or national levels. In any election, there will always be a winner and gallant losers. If the results of such electoral process become contestable, therefore, the credibility becomes questionable.
Look at the parties of the First Republic. I mean, it was unheard of that anybody would say will be conducting a parallel congress of Action Group or NCNC. Yes, people disagreed with the leadership of those parties, but they immediately formed their own parties, and there was no question about that. Check the parties of the Second Republic, MPN, MPP, and all that. Things like parallel congresses were unheard of. I mean, everybody knew who was in the party and who was not. And even when people disagreed within the parties, they either fight it out at any forum of the party, or one of the groups will move out and form another party.
Recently, the two major political parties in the country had their congresses to elect officers to lead the parties at the state level. It was, however, marred with controversies and violence in most states of the country. In Lagos State, the situation was not different. In APC, parallel congresses were held, which led to the emergence of factional chairmen and party leaders. While in PDP, it was greeted with violence and was declared inconclusive. What does this portend for internal democracy in our political system?
What it portends generally for democracy is that our democracy is not well and right. You see, because there is no democracy without political parties. Parties are like the soul of democracy. I mean, the Western democracy that we are practicing is not thinkable that it can exist without political parties. So if our political parties are not working well, immediately it means that our democracy is not working well. A democracy where we don't know who is who, it is almost a commercialized democracy. It is almost a mercenary democracy where anybody can come and inherit a party that he never formed, inherit a party that he has never worked for, inherit a party that he has never developed, and he will inherit it and then feel free about it.
Some residents of Lagos, however, expressed their views.
If we're having a system where political conventions for political parties and primary elections are marred with violence, and that does not really give the voters, it doesn't really give people confidence to go out to vote because people don't want to witness violence.
If you look at what happened at the local government general election, Lagos, so a lot of opinions, a lot of things happened. Like myself, even I was discouraged that if this kind of a thing can be happening in this country, definitely we are not securing the future.
To deepen democracy in our political parties, therefore, what is the way forward?
I think that the National Assembly must wake up. They know what I'm saying because most of them are either victims or beneficiaries of some of these things we are talking about. So they can sit down and articulate how to legislate the courts out of party internal democratic processes. I know that even these internal democratic processes may not be so democratic, but it is better to allow a party to impose a candidate known to the leaders or to the members of that candidate, acceptable to them, than for an outsider like a court to come and impose another outsider on a political party. That is destroying democracy. Allow the parties to impose candidates on themselves. If they do, and that candidate does not have popular acceptability within the party, that party will lose the election.
If we can jettison parochial interests and individual politics and place above all national interests, our democracy will also be a model to other nations.
The program remains We Can Deal. Welcome back from that commercial break. And with us, we have another guest by the name of Honorable Chris Azubogu, Member House of Reps representing Nnewi North, Nnewi South, and Ekwusigbo. Sir, welcome to We Can Deal.
Thank you very much.
And okay, let's kick it off based on the question I asked the last guest as regarding elections. I do believe you contested for the primaries.
Oh, yes, I did.
And well, you know, there was that whole internal conflict going on, and we would want to start off with that. Why is that? Why is there so much internal conflict when it comes to the electoral process and party primaries?
Thank you very much. You can agree with me that the electoral process in Nigeria or political partisanship is still evolving like any other thing. And I can assure you that the more we do, the more we improve on it. Presently, you don't have a perfect system. And also, if you look at it generally, you can see that the economic activity in the country is not very, very, very strong presently. And a lot of people is falling back to politics as if it's a source of livelihood totally, not more a vocation. So people would depend totally on it, and they fight and do all manner of things because having a hold of power or anything becomes a source of livelihood for you. So a lot of things go on it. So people are struggling about it. But for anything in politics, it's power. Power is not given, power is taken. So people struggle to maneuver, to do all manner of things to gain acceptability, either in the party or anywhere. They use everything they have. So, and it is like that. But until those involved set out a rule, and they're ready to follow the rules, and it's acceptable to everybody. That's why I said the processes are evolving. As we are trying to strengthen out the electoral process by way of the umpire INEC through the amendments of Act. Also, parties have to look at the guidelines and follow it and develop internal processes that will help them to bring out some things that are very, very democratic.
You contested in a number of primaries. How was it for you?
Like I told you, it's an evolving process. Same every party is not, no one is better than the other one. It's same people.
Okay.
Do you understand? So is the process after everyone, nobody is happy, or because if you look at it very well, because it will not be a perfect process. Whatever the party does is, but it's bad when you, after following whatever the party has done, you start going to the party have already, even the constitution empowers the party to do whatever they are. For me, once the party decides what they want to do, you don't need to fight it. They want to do it.
Okay.
Do you understand? You move on. You correct it. If you have opportunity, if you're in the party or if you decide to leave the party, you stay there and make sure the processes are improved on. Like what the National Assembly, what we're doing in National Assembly presently. Every party that really, after we've passed the Electoral Act, the parties will look at it and see the provisions in that amendment we made and see how to develop an acceptable process. The parties are holding on to that, direct or indirect. Any of them have its own flaws or weaknesses. Can easily be manipulated, depending on who is handling it. But if the people themselves agree and put a process that is acceptable, that is democratic, even what you said the last time, we have people, when Faces was talking about trying to use money or one person, either the governor or godfather, trying to manipulate the process. No. Membership of party, political party. If you look at it, they'll say that you must maintain a register. You must do this, you must do this, whether it's direct or indirect. For you to be a member of a party, you must be a financial member, a committed member. So the party on its own will develop a mechanism to sustain it, not depending on somebody.
I really don't know, but you said something, the more we advance, the better we get.
Sure.
Now, I'd like to know, how do we get it better? Because I want to believe that the party primaries remain the taproot from which every other election grows. If we get it wrong there, it's difficult to readjust.
Thank you.
So how do we begin to make it right?
Thank you very much. Just like you said, it also builds on INEC. Yes, in terms of saying that you want to practice democracy, you open up, let people have as many parties as possible. After they start registering. That was why I felt much better with Babangida style. Let's have left, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. Because it's same people in all the places. We're all Nigerians. So they'll start forming ideology. They were talking about it. Over time, political parties now don't have any ideology. People moving from one place to another. If you check from 2015, those people that moved from PDP to APC are the same people that came back to PDP. And everybody's in everywhere. The same people that are in PDP today are people that are in APC tomorrow. So now, if you're talking about ideology and membership, you make it in such a way that for you to belong to this, there are rules up to the ward level. So that you know that you're a committed member of this body. Like he said, there are members, there are supporters. For you to qualify as a member who will be eligible to vote in a primary, you must be a truly financial member who understands the rules of the party and what your ideologies are, and look at somebody who can project that your ideology better, not somebody who is bringing more money. Somebody who has something to offer the people. Somebody who is acceptable. You do have, even the party will have a research system to do proper study and know who among these candidates is more acceptable to the electorate. If they really want to win based on ideology or not based on each of, there's too much hunger, people are depending more on money. So these are the core things we need to. So over time, the parties will evolve, but we must not give too much room. INEC is making look at, so once there's a disagreement, you open up new parties. More parties will open up. In America, in Britain, you can see core parties being there over time. I tell you again, if you look at SDP and NRC, it was something that would have developed our democracy. Principally, you can see too in Nigeria today, there are principally two strong parties. For democracy to grow, based into ideology, go parties, we must have two strong parties.
Okay. All right.
It will guide. One thing to do is that it will not have it will not allow us to get into ethnic politics, so that it will cut across, so that we can build that national unity that is needed. People will now converge. Where do you have ideologies? So people will generally fall into nation building, becoming more nationalistic, so that we can look at it generally and look at our strengths and our weaknesses and build something that will help us have Nigeria, even in our general life, so that we can drive towards merits, competencies, do you understand? Not entrenching mediocrity. So based on that, people will begin to develop better.
Okay.
That's what I believe.
Also, sir, okay, of course, the Not Too Young to Run bill was passed, but in all honesty, they're still not as inclusive as they should be. And, you know, you said something that, you know, made so much sense in that, you know, it's about, you know, ideology reorientation, which of course would start and hold more sway with the youth. But how is that being enforced? How is that being strengthened so that the youth, of course, are involved, and of course they come with more innovative ideas and, well, more renegade in their approach of things?
That is when you structure the political parties well, so that people that have means, unlike the youths, will not hijack the process and manipulate it and ensure that the youth will not even have to have any chance. Whoever they present to them after the primaries is whatever they do it. They do not support people from grassroots to make sure that they emerge. Do you understand? That is one. Okay. Secondly, when you build strong ideologies, the chances that the young people will participate is that you will be less more involved in the party primaries. The most acceptable person, whether it's a youth group supporting their person, will become, when you do survey, you see that this person is very acceptable. So if you want to elect people with less expenses, you know those that's acceptable to the electorate. So you spend less. Our electioneering process is costing too much money, that it makes even governance not to impact positively, because what you spend to get to office is not what you recoup, because you need it for another time. Do you understand? So people spend so much and becomes a burden to whoever is elected, because he needed too much money to. But somebody who emerges in a process that is acceptable by the people, who people hold him accountable. So he tries to do more for the people, so that next time he's depending on the people to be elected, not on the money bag that brought him.
You know, when you talk about accountability, something came to my mind. I know that usually people have mandates. People have, you know, promises, so to speak, that they have, you know, lined up for the people. A lot of times we don't get these things, you know, done. And I'm wondering, could there be some form of accountability being posed on these people by the parties, because they are representing the parties? That way, the people they're you know, leading will not be taken for granted. I mean, if I go out there and I don't execute what we promised, I come back, I get punished one way or the other.
Thank you very much. The onus lies more on the citizens than the party. The person is not doing anything and he's getting money and giving it to the party. Party doesn't matter. If the citizens demand to extract commitment, the what called social contract, the one you sign with the party, what you will do for the party, because the way the party is structured, they are not, they can leave anybody and get whoever that brings money, and they give him a ticket. If they are dependent on the person that will win the election, the person that have served, the person that is committed to the citizens, they will look deeper. They are not looking at that, the party themselves. But the citizens, if they demand that it is only somebody we are sure that have done well or that will do well or that is committed to serving, that have records or track records of service that we are going to vote, the party will be forced to. The citizens don't extract seats from them. They don't make parties to look bad or good. Because of hunger, people give them money. And if the citizens become like working through the civil society organization or organized groups to extract commitment from those they elected and demand accountability and transparency in governance and highlight it so that you can measure performance. First, there will be a KPI, key performance indicators or indices for you to measure how goodly or badly the person has performed. Then, next time, it will account. Records will be important. The citizens are not asking those they elected to give account of. So they allow them, especially the executives. So you must hold them from local government to state to federal. So whatever that happens, citizens must demand accountability. If you make promises, what did you promise us you will do? How fair have you, how well have you achieved? So these are the core things that are there. The citizens must develop a mechanism to participate. And also in governance, open government initiative involves that citizens will participate, even in shaping policies, in budgetary processes, everything, so they can understand what you are doing. You can't craft policies for people without getting the people involved.
Okay. I'm tempted to round off, but I won't do that until I've asked, what are there for the women? I mean...
Fantastic.
Okay.
And when we talk about it, you cannot talk about the sharing process in Nigeria without women. They're more dedicated. Once the environment is safe for them to come out, they're more in number.
Exactly.
And they participate more because they know it affects them. In politics, I've realized that women are more dependable, and whatever you give to them, even in the political process, whatever you give to them gets to them.
Exactly.
Touches more people. So if you have a woman, the chance that you can get her husband or her children is very much there. So working with women is also very important.
I like you for that. All right, so we'll be speaking with Honorable Chris Azubogu, and he is the honorary member representing Nnewi North, South, and Ekwusigo Federal Constituency. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very
and
much.
Continue to fly the flag as you are doing, especially for women. And speaking of women, let's go to find out something that is not very usual. Women voting for men. That's from Dayo La. That's it.
Women form a large chunk of Nigeria's population, yet few women are involved in the political process. Low percentage of women currently occupy leadership positions in Nigeria. At the moment, only 7 out of 109 senators and 22 of 360 members of the House of Representatives are women, despite their numerical strength. One then wonders what explains the lack of women representation in the political process in Nigeria.
Women actually vote for other women who are competent and women who actually come out to contest, who are competent, who they know that once this woman goes into office, she would actually do a good job. It's a narrative that I really don't know how we started pushing it, and a whole lot of people started believing in the narrative that, oh, women don't vote for women. It's not really true. It's not really accurate.
Political observers have attributed the low female representation in the Nigerian political process to the lack of support from fellow women during elections. Research shows that women are more likely to vote for men than women. Several outstanding females have braved the hurdles to join the political terrain but failed in their quest for elective positions, owing largely to the lack of support from fellow women.
You would notice that in Nigeria of today, if you come out to say you want to run for office, society looks down on you. Family might ask you what you are looking for. You might not have a supportive spouse. All of this again is also coming into play. So it's really, really not easy for us to come out full force like how men do. But then we're getting there.
It is a known fact that men are more actively involved in partisan politics than women in Nigeria.
First things first, women should get involved in politics. They don't need to contest, but they need to get involved in the, day-to-day runnings of how the political terrain is going. Women should participate in, the local government meetings in your ward. First of all, your ward. They should get involved in their wards, get to know who their ward chairman are, the woman leader in the ward, support them, get to know what is going on. Come out. Know that at the end of the day, a lot of women are doing fantastic in politics. Even outside politics, in the business angle, women are managers right from God. The men are supposed to be the protectors, and the women are actually supposed to be the caregivers. They are the ones that take care of the front and take care of the home. So if a woman decides to go into politics tomorrow, she would perform 110% to what most men are actually doing.
Men fund political parties, attend meetings at daytimes and odd hours, but women have the numbers and could swing surprises if they work together.
Well, moving away from politics, we will go into something else, and that's what I've heard not too long ago, the Nigerian startup bill, and I wondered what it is. But luckily, I have someone with me in the studio who will be helping me define it and, of course, educate me even more. That's David Otoro. He is the partner and head of technology and innovation at ALX Law Firm. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to hit it just the way I started.
Straight up.
What is the NBS?
All right. So I guess a good place to start is trying to understand what startups are in the first place. And I always like to do that, right, for context, so that as the conversation progresses, we would understand why the Nigerian startup bill is important. So startups are innovative businesses. They come into systems that already exist, sort of disrupt them and make things better. And I always like to use examples based on what we can see. So take, for instance, before the coming of Amazon. If you were trying to send things in different parts of the world, it was very cumbersome. You probably tried DHL, shipping, and all of that. But with Amazon now, seated right here, I can just place an order, and then something is delivered to me in a few hours or days, which is a model that Jumia has also, adopted as well. So startups come in, look at what probably goes on in the society, and then find a way to make it easier with technology, which is where we now come to tech-enabled startups. Okay. So the Nigerian Startup Bill is a piece of legislation that, when it comes into force, would set a framework, for how startups can thrive. If you look at what goes on in Nigeria, there are a lot of laws that even affect startups. We're saying this will harmonize most of those laws, lead to regulatory certainty as well.
Okay. All right. Okay, you make it sound like, putting everything under one umbrella. So, which leads to my question. What does it mean when the Nigerian Startup Bill is taking a big tent approach, so to speak?
Thank you. And that's a very good question. So, and funny enough, we just finished talking politics now, because the big tent approach is actually a political science technology. So what it simply means is that it's an all-inclusive legislation. Okay. And to explain that, the presidency is involved in this bill. Okay. The private sector has been heavily involved in it. The ministries, departments, and agencies are also involved. In fact, the ecosystem had a 2-day engagement with over 40 MDAs in the month of August, whereby they had the opportunity to critique provisions of the bill and give their feedback on it. The general public, there's a website, there are social media platforms where they are contributing and having their say in what goes into the bill. The legislature as well is also looking at it and saying, how do we harmonize all of this so that it doesn't conflict with different parts that already exist? That bill has already gone to the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. Pantami has looked at it. They've sent it to the Ministry of Justice now, where it has been vetted, and hopefully it could be presented before the end of this month.
Okay. And I'm wondering, as you speak, what's the major objective of this bill? What's there for people?
Okay, so I will start by talking about local content, and you typically see that in the oil and gas sector, right? But what this bill is trying to do is to create the right types of incentives for local businesses to be able to grow, thrive, employ people, set an environment that will contribute to Nigeria's GDP at the end of the day. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, maybe 2001, thereabouts, the technology sector was contributing less than 1% to Nigeria's GDP. As of last year, I saw that there was between 10 to 15% from the tech sector contributing to Nigeria's GDP. Nigeria's startup ecosystem at the moment is the largest in Africa. Last year, it contributed over $3 billion. That's the value of the startup ecosystem in Nigeria. And there were foreign direct investment of over $300 million last year into Nigeria, the highest in Africa.
Okay, all right. Okay, now, of course, now based on what you said, tech is growing. And of course, in the near future, we hope it is rivaling agriculture and other aspects to earn GDP. But how will the NSB lead to regulation or a regulatory certainty in the tech industry, so to speak?
Fantastic. So the thing there about startups is that they actually cut across different sectors.
Okay.
You actually have startups in the agriculture sector.
Okay.
You may have heard about them, farm crowding, some of them.
Yes.
They're in the financial sector. Most of these fintechs, PiggyVest, Flutterwave, they're in education, they're in different sectors. So what you typically find is that there may be insufficient laws that exist for them, or even incentives, right? And so they want to start a business, but they're not sure of what the government will do. Another example that I like to use are those that are involved in cryptocurrency and blockchain. Really no legislation for them. The CBN comes out with policies. The SEC may say something. People are afraid of what to do. They may start a business and then tomorrow it's shut down because something comes up. What this bill will now do is that there'll be that all-encompassing legislation that will cover these different startups. And then even the MDAs that are involved in supervising those sectors would also be part of that, and can have that conversation with the entrepreneurs and say, look, these are the laws that we intend to bring out. The entrepreneurs will have the opportunity to feedback and say, well, this can disrupt businesses. How about we look at it this way? Because the government sometimes doesn't know what these entrepreneurs have to go to in order to raise money. Definitely. You may hear that maybe one of them is valued at over $1 billion. All of that may just be debt at the end of the day.
You're very correct on that. Right. And I must say thank you very much, Davidson Oturu, for coming on, partner and head of technology and innovation at ALX Law Firm. Thank you so much for coming. I know that lots of questions and suggestions came in today. We will take almost all of it tomorrow. As of now, we still just say goodbye, and whatever you do, remember Nigeria is ours and we have to make it what we want it to be. Bye for now. See you again tomorrow.